All right, welcome to episode 10 of the Snowball Effect. I'm here with the amazing Caitlin Teed. Caitlin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Noah. I'm happy to be here.
Great to have you. I was just telling Caitlin it's the 10th episode of the Snowball Effect, so this is a very exciting milestone.
Yeah, congratulations to you and super intimidating for me. So I've got a whole series of folks to riff off of from this. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know we spoke earlier and you were telling me how you used to work at Shopify, which is really awesome. I think a lot of people dream of working at Shopify. They fantasize about it. It's almost like Google with how it's mysterious and people think it's really cool. And not only that, but you've worked like at least 5 positions or something crazy like that at Shopify. So could you tell us, like, we want to know, what is it like to work at Shopify?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm happy to dive into that. I think Shopify found me at a time when I was a bit lost after university, and I'd taken a career. I thought I was going to want a career in journalism, and if you have any understanding of journalism, you're kind of again aware of many hats. Got to talk to a lot of people, learn a lot of things. So I got in the door at Shopify through a friend. And like living in Ottawa at the time, it was well known in the city. It was like the tech darling of Canada, and like being headquartered in Ottawa was such a cool opportunity because it's such a smaller city. So I got in at the time in support, and support at the time was a very exciting role because you kind of got to get directly on the phone, email, chat with Shopify merchants all around the world at all stages. Like I remember getting a call from Chubby's, the short brand. I don't know
Yeah,
if like
yeah.
I'm just into our general support queue, and I freaked out. I had to like put them on mute. And I was like, my boyfriend is a huge fan of your fans.
That's
And it was like
awesome.
their chief operating officer, but that was so cool. And then I had, other people where they're like, oh, I'm Harley's friend. And I'm like the president of Shopify. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I don't think I could transfer you to him. It's not how that works. So, and I learned so much about like merchants and e-commerce and like getting set up in that space. Um, and then not only did I learn that, but I started getting involved with like agencies and partners and chatting with them on the phone. And then there was a role opening up in partnerships. And I was like, huh, this is kind of cool. Like helping the people who help the direct to consumer merchants and all these amazing brands. That was such an interesting segue for me at Shopify. So they were hungry for people that were willing to get on calls with like any kind of agency that was interested in working with Shopify. And I did that for a year and a bit. And then I moved to community because there was an opportunity that they were like, wow, there's so many partners here. And we're running events like Shopify Unite, which I got to be a part of, and other smaller tours like Shopify Pursuit and A Day with Shopify. So being able to take my skills of like the relationship building into like community building and event and ecosystem stuff was such a cool pivot. And I got to work on Shopify Unite, which is like our product conference for 4 years, and just kind of snuck my way in there. I was always like, yeah, like I'm here to do anything. Again, like that wearer of many hats, which I think is a skill that Shopify definitely at that time of hyper growth really appreciated. I think the roles are a lot more focused these days, and you see things super specific to specific experience or vertical. So they look a lot more for experience. But at the time, it was great to just try on as many different hats as I could. And oh my gosh, where did I end up after that? Operations, like, the pandemic hit, and then they were like, we need people to just project manage, and got to flow into the app ecosystem there, which is where I chatted even more with the co-founders of Gavalo, Brianne and Kelly.
Yes.
And that's how I stumbled on their door shortly after that. So, I mean, Shopify I could talk about that for a long time. It was almost 7 years I was there. I think I had at least 5 different roles, and what a wild ride. And I know, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes that I could share, but I don't know I'm sure there's a whole other episode we could do on that.
For sure, for sure. Well, one thing I'm really curious about with your experience at Shopify, so 7 years is obviously a really long time, and Shopify has grown a ton in the past 7 years. So like from starting 7 years ago to when you just left recently, like what were some of the biggest changes that you noticed in the company from behind the scenes?
Oh gosh. I mean, you know what? It's interesting is when you think about that kind of growth, you think that there's a lot of change. And when I think about the values, they stayed so much the same, which was always a merchant obsessed
Yeah,
company. And the value of making commerce better for everyone is something that was almost in every brief, in everything we did. The obsession that we had with like the Shopify has with merchants and and brands is like to the point where they encourage their own employees to set up stores.
oh
And
wow.
so I don't know if you're familiar with a brand called Bush Bomb, but they set up up a Shopify store, like as an employee, just working behind the scenes and doing this as a side hustle. And they ended up getting a ton of investment money from Dragon's Den, which is like the Canadian Shark Tank. I'm up here in Canada, so everything's like a little different. And so now they like are able to be like consultants and like, and work with like on how, you know, you can turn your side hustle into like a multi-million-dollar startup, which is just such a cool thing there. And I mean, I think I'm getting away from your original question, which is what's changed aside from the size. And I mean, I think there's a lot of really cool, smart people that work there. And I think that it's also what's changed is the opportunity within all facets of it. So not only like being a merchant, like the product's better, but being like building an app on Shopify. Like the opportunities are like so endless there, working with Shopify merchants of all sizes, like from startups to enterprise, like who's even doing Kylie's store right now, like Kylie Kardashian, like, or you know, all that stuff. So.
That's really interesting. And I bet like a reason that they are so successful is that they haven't changed internally that much in 7 years. They've been able to stick to their values and grow without like swaying away. And I'm sure like a lot of companies that do grow end up swaying away, and that's like could lead to their downfall. So that honestly makes a ton of sense. Just out of my curiosity, did you ever decide to build a store while you were working there?
I tried multiple different times. I tried with some friends. I was going to do like a quirky yoga apparel brand called Uncorked Apparel, which was like Merlot, like, oh my gosh, there was so many like bubbly vinyasa, like just funny, quirky things. And then I tried to open up a store called Flandels, which is flannel sandals. And then I tried to do all these random stupid things.
I like that.
Never panned out. My own personal brand store is on Shopify, and I'm trying actually to set up my own drop shipping store right now, actually. So, I mean, there's again, opportunity endless. So
very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. So that was your past. Right now you're working for Gavalo, which is a really cool Shopify related startup. Could you tell us more about not only what the company is doing, but what your role there has been and what it's been like?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we at Gavalo are reinventing digital gifting experience. So what that means right now is our product is really focused on building a better gift card experience on Shopify. I don't know if you or anyone listening is familiar with the native experience, like what's built into the Shopify backend. It's one part of the product that I think could use a lot of improvement. So what we did is build an app that can really function making gifts more personal, which they should be. Like gift cards, I feel like can be such a cop-out gift sometimes. Or like, oh, you didn't know what to get me, you got me a gift card. Gift cards are actually like a huge loyalty and brand retention strategy. Like when I really love a company, I can then send a gift card to you or to someone I know.
Totally.
And so we help build a better product around that, and like we integrate with Klaviyo, and we're building out like a whole platform around better gifting. And that's kind of what I'm right there. I'm working with our partners. So any other apps in the Shopify ecosystem, as well as other agencies that are building Shopify stores currently.
That's awesome. So you brought up a really interesting point about how there is like and I didn't even think about this, but there is a bit of a stigma with giving a gift card as a gift, that it's like almost like, oh, you're lazy or you like didn't really put thought into it. So is one of your guys' missions to kind of like change that stigma and like reword what digital gifting is? That's awesome.
Oh yeah. And I think it's so funny. It's so cool starting with gift cards. Like there's so many like plans and things we have. And I think gifting in general is such a difficult industry. You know, like literally every time it's my boyfriend's birthday or Christmas, I have to Google like what to get men first. Like, you know, but like, you know, could you imagine a world where like I can, get recommendations of other D2C brands, and like how easy would it be to send a gift card? And I think gift cards as experiences and things like that are going to be a way of the future for sure.
That's really awesome. That's super interesting. Cool. Yeah, I like that. I think the stigma is definitely there right now. And if you guys are able to change it, like that would be really, really cool.
Yeah. Like you probably have so many like plastic or paper gift cards like in your own like drawers and dressers somewhere that you've never used either, which is something we're trying to solve, because when you don't use that, that's actually a liability on the business, because the company can't charge that as revenue.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I'm learning a lot. Yeah.
I mean, just what you've told me is really awesome and educational for me. That's cool that you guys like started with this like digital gifting experience on Shopify, and I could see like the much bigger picture now, which I didn't understand before. So that's really insightful. So my one question I have is, we've talked a lot about the name Gavalo, and because I have trouble pronouncing it. I know you weren't the founder, but do you know like what the name means or where it came from?
Oh my God, Rhiannon and Kelly are going to watch this and they're going to be like, Caitlin, we told you. And I'm like, I remember, but it was on a phone call, like probably 3 months ago. It's a word in Icelandic or in another like Dutch language that
Mm,
means go with the light, I believe. And so
okay.
it's meant to shine. Like the concept, I think there is like, there's two ways that it's meant to be done. But I know that like Valo, I think, is a like a Dutch or Swedish word for light.
Okay.
And I think we were trying to say like go towards the light, like there's a better way of doing this. Like that's kind of the
Okay.
way
Very cool.
way of the words. But I understand how it can be a bit like hard to like pronounce maybe or understand. But that's a great question. I always like asking people, and I'm gonna get you a better answer. Maybe we could leave it in the comments. Like this is actually what Caitlin was trying to say.
For sure. For sure. I'll put that in the description of the video.
Appreciate it.
Cool. So
Oh,
my last question for you, as someone who is like in the weeds of the e-commerce world and the direct to consumer world, used to work at Shopify, working for like a really awesome Shopify related SaaS now. What is like a big e-commerce related trend that you're seeing right now that you think could be useful to the people that are watching? Because it's mostly brand owners who watch this. So what is something that you're seeing that's maybe new or people aren't talking about as much that you think you could bring to the surface?
well, I was gonna like awkwardly plug gift cards here, but I mean, aside from what I've already
Plug
said,
it.
I do honestly believe that gift cards are something that have been like improperly like stigmatized with being a cop out gift. I think that they could be a pain in the butt for brands and business owners who don't even necessarily want to offer them because it does create unnecessary debts. I think we're seeing a new way of gifting in general. I'm hoping to see like less discount codes with expiries and more gift cards with value out there to offer like referral incentives and whatnot. I mean, it sucks that it's been a while since I've been to an in-person event because I will say that like, especially to all the brand owners out there and everyone listening, like get feedback from your community about what you're missing and like subscribe to like a bunch of different newsletters, seeing what's going on out there because what I could predict today might be completely off balance tomorrow. So, I mean, I definitely say gift cards and I say like continue with community feedback and community building in general is the one thing that I think will always be on trend. It's the one thing that we valued at that Shopify valued a lot too. See, after 7 years, you still say like we at Shopify, even though like I'm working on changing my grammar there. But it is something that community building and getting feedback from your community is huge when it comes to your product, the way you think about features and discounts and loyalty programs in the future, and that retention. Keep people happy and keep them coming back and offer something that no one else does. And maybe that is just your amazing expertise in your service, whatever it is you offer out there, all you beautiful brands trying amazing things.
Totally agree. That's super insightful. So just out of curiosity, so you said like Shopify did like an outstanding job and it makes a ton of sense at collecting user feedback and then turning that into, I'm sure, like action items and things on the roadmap to improve the product. Do you have any like insights for the way that they, or maybe a more simple version of the way that they would structure that maybe a direct to consumer brand could try to replicate?
Oh, that's a good question. Gosh, I mean, honest. I was gonna say, like, if Kelly Vaughn tweets something, then everyone's watching and everyone ends up looking at it from a product perspective. You
Right.
mean just like tools or like ways that they can like prioritize feedback or
Yeah, and anything that's like, collecting feedback and turning it into action items, because I think, brands might not have a good way or a consistent way of collecting feedback, or they might not know what to do with feedback and how to prioritize things, like really
mm,
anything.
oh, that's such a good question. I mean, it was interesting because I would always keep a tab when I worked there on, and especially when we were about to launch a new product, we would look to see, and like the new product maybe was in high demand and wasn't necessarily known. This was like way back in the day, but we would like go find all the like the old forum posts and like any tweet that mentioned it, and then we'd like reply to all of them saying, "Hey, guess what? Like we fixed it. Like it's good now." But that's again like more reactively how to do it. I think if you need to look at here's some actually advice. Like when you're looking at your roadmap, like know what you aren't building. Because while there might be people that are looking for something specific, it might not be what you're offering. And I think that's something that any product or any company should be remembering what they are versus what they're not trying to be. Like I remember Shopify a long time ago said like no to Walmart because it was just going to be not the right setup because that wasn't what Shopify was. And they weren't going to try and completely break what that offering was. I don't know if Walmart's on Shopify now. I don't think it is, but like it's knowing what you are versus what you're not willing to break from a product perspective. And that is just like having a good roadmap and like figuring out what your goals are and staying with them and, you know, pivoting when you need to. But that's how I look at it.
No, totally. And that makes a ton of sense. That even circles back to what we were talking about before of how like your 7 years at Shopify, they would not stray away even an inch from their main values. So I guess applying that same concept to receiving customer feedback, realizing that some customers might request things that don't align with your values, and you have to be okay with saying no to those things.
And it's hard to say no, but like it also keeps you from like, you know, stretching yourself too thin. Exactly. And then you lose a lot of your brand identity, or like your product consistency. Stick with what you're good at and like expand slowly from there.
Totally. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for coming on. This was a really fun and awesome episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will see everyone in the next episode.